battle, fighting, screaming profanities over a $3 mic. Standing as the basis of arguably a majority of all games ever, combat is one of the most critical pieces of any game that includes it. The combat in a game that isn't even combat-centric can make or break it, and as such, combat has changed, altered, and evolved a lot over the past decades of video gaming. And this very much extends into the realm of roguelikes. Most every roguelike out there has elements of combat, and as such, a defining feature of most is the way in which it is integrated into their games. Of course, more than combat makes up the fullness of a roguelike, but a large portion of the gameplay, creativity, and success of roguelikes lies in their combats. Many different methods of combat implementation have been approached by many different games. Tons of different mediums of combat systems, item interactions with fighting, world interactions with battle, crying. There's a lot, and I've played through a lot, but before about a month ago, it would be pretty hard for me to say that any combat system in particular stood out. Now, of course, this doesn't mean I haven't found a roguelike with good combats. I've found quite a lot, actually. But most of the time, the elements that most stick out to me about roguelikes are less the combat and more the overall gameplay, the creative integration of permadeath and procedural generation, the world, the story, as some of all these combined, etc. I highly rate the combat of roguelikes such as that in Hades, Dead Cells, or Risk of Rain 2, but none to me really top the list compared to each other. These roguelikes all have their own unique reasons I thought they played great, and they have very fun combat systems, but at the same time, no one combat system was really significant enough relatively for me to be like, that's exactly why I played this roguelike. That's what really draws me in more than anything. That nailed it. And then, there was this.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
Astral Ascent is a 2D platform fighter roguelike that follows your journey as one of 4 unique characters through a space astral prison, fighting through various enemies and zodiac bosses to the various worlds of the prison on your way to the mysterious being known as the Master. I recently picked up this game, and in the arguably few amount of hours I've logged, I've already fell in love with it. From the very start, the presentation, the story, the art, the voice acting were all awesome. The game really well portrayed itself in the animated opening sequence and in my initial gameplay, and it's been a hot minute since I've seen a really well put together animated opening cinematic in a roguelike, so kudos for that. And as I continued, the game continued to look gorgeous with an intriguing world to explore. But above all else, what really caught my eye almost immediately was the combat. This game has one of the most dense combat systems I've ever seen in a roguelike, hands down. By that, I mean the sheer breadth of aspects of the game directly tied to combat are vast. There's a lot to go over here, but first, I'll run you through the bare bones of the game's combat before delving into more specifics. Astral's challenges come in the form of explorable levels with scattered enemies, an arena wave-type battle room, boss fights, and a few special rooms. You're given a couple choices when entering a new area between different difficulties of the explore or fight options, with the different difficulties containing different rewards, and occasionally you'll get the choice of a special room or a boss fight once you clear enough areas. To complete these challenges, Astral's combat system equips you with 4 overarching moves: basic attacks, character-centric abilities, dashes, and spells. Every character has a unique basic attack, which is a basic auto-combo. Every character has a unique character ability that does a more specific task, like Kiran's parry or Octave's drone summon. Every character shares the same dash for iframes and a burst of movement, and then there's a metric ton of spells. These spells are your main mode of dealing damage and are the centerpiece of the game's combat. They work off of a mana system. You have a certain set amount of mana bars, and using a spell depletes a varying spell-dependent number of those bars, which are then able to be refilled through basic attacks or with certain pickups, which I'll touch on later. There are tons of these things, 20 unique spells for each character, 36 common shared spells, and 12 zodiac spells for a grand total of 128. Now I know you're probably saying, Frosif, lots of roguelikes have variety in their main method of dealing damage, be that weapons, or characters, or spells. But this is only where the combat density starts in Astral Ascent, so stick with me. Your character has 4 slots that a spell can be assigned to, and you start every run with all 4 filled with a starter spell unique to each character. You can find all sorts of different spells along your run to trade out for any one of your inventory spells and mix and match them as you see fit. Pretty typical, but the interesting factor of spells really lies in the way you use them. Use spells cycle to the back of your spell list, and you cannot use that spell again until you've used all the remaining spells in your arsenal. This combined with the fact that you can skip over any of your used or unused spells adds a lot more intentionality to spell usage. Instead of having full access to any spell that you might want to use at all times, your spell usage is limited by what order you use them in. You constantly have to keep track of what spells you've used and what order your spells are in to use. Mayhap swapping the order of spells situationally to say use an AoE spell for a group of enemies first, then skip a weaker starting spell and switch over to a strong single damage spell on a different enemy, then burn through the starter spell and auto-combo to refill mana, then use another short-range spell on leftover enemies to cycle back to the first AoE spell to prepare to use on another large group of incoming enemies. It sounds simple, but it really is a challenge to manage your arsenal to get the most efficiency out of spells in the moments while also planning ahead on what spells to save for another encounter while also dealing with dodging enemy attacks and maneuvering through the map. Combined with the fact that the gameplay in Astral, while not the fastest, is still pretty quick, it becomes a real test to split your focus between the immediate danger of enemies on screen and thinking of what spell lineup you need to defeat them while also memorizing and mastering your spell lineup to prepare for future encounters. All of that, and we're only about halfway into the video. Yeah, boy. If the intrigue of the combat ended here, honestly, I would still like Astral sheerly because of how active I have to stay at all times. Other roguelikes certainly give you several modes of combat at once in-game, but none have that added special level of complexity that the spell cycle gimmick in Astral gives, which I really appreciate. It works to make a very uniquely engaging combat system, one that prioritizes active thought in battle and rewards paying attention in the moment and thinking ahead. So much so that in between battles, I often actively think through what my current spell lineup is, memorize the cycle, anticipate what I need next, and take a second to relearn the cycle every time I pick up a new spell. To me, this is pretty fun to do, and it's not like chess master levels of deep thinking, and I might be overcomplicating it by trying to explain it, but the spell cycle does make the game more engaging through having less passive moments of spammy repetitive fighting I've sometimes seen in other roguelikes. And I enjoy the balance of activeness it requires in reactionary battling, strategizing, and memory. It also makes my failures feel like they are on me instead of being the game's fault, which is a big thing I like to see in roguelikes. Some titles can really throw you into some unfair situations, and Astral is not completely devoid of these moments, but often a death from me is explainable to my own devices. I didn't manage my spells well, I didn't split my focus enough, I didn't know my spell lineup, I didn't remember that my ramen has been microwaving for 30 minutes and my dorm is now irradiated. Mix that with a variety of unique and varied spells to pick up in-game, some additional character-specific abilities thrown in to manage, a smooth, responsive feel to combat overall, and you've got yourself quite the incredible and dense combat system. But this alone does not give Astral the nailed rating for its combats. The more the better is my motto when it comes to content in a roguelike, to make repetitive runs of the roguelike variable and open more avenues to unique procedural generation, and Astral Ascent really knocks it out of the park in this regard. The game hosts a plethora of upgrades, which I'll use to refer to the collective items, stat upgrades, etc. in the game, which directly tie into the game's combats. Gambits can be picked up in a run to add effects to individual spells. Pavlos feathers can be collected to upgrade spell levels, increasing their damage. Auras can be found to add passive effects to your character. Stone altars can be collected to upgrade your character's raw stats, like crit chance or damage. Zodiacs can occasionally be challenged to add them as a temporary summon. And stars, which are collected from clearing an explore or fight room, can be used to buy stat upgrades, upgrade auras, purchase gambits, or heal before a boss in Andromeda's bar. And that is just the non-permanent stuff. There's also prowess, which are character-specific upgrades usually applied to characters' abilities or auto-combos given per character level and last the entire run. Echoes, which upgrade your character in a variety of run-permanent ways, multiple other special areas with a host of different run-permanent goodies to give, and overall upgrades applied to every run purchasable in the game's hub, such as from Zim's shop and the Void Catalyst tree. Rant aside, the point is there is just so much combat-centric content in this game. Enough so that I honestly didn't even know what symbol meant what thing meant what effect for the first decent couple hours of gameplay. And yet, when I learned the ropes, the massive influx of information wasn't so overwhelming that it felt inflated just for the sake of being inflated. Every aspect of these upgrades has a unique purpose that adds layers to the game's combats, and the game would be very different without the addition of each one. Especially later in the run when things start to stack, you can really tell the influence of each upgrade working in their own way to create whatever monstrosity you've built. Tying this together with a good variety in each individual upgrade type, along with the ability to freely interchange many of your upgrades as you progress, guarantees very different feeling combat for every run of the game, which is crucial to the longevity of the game, or any roguelike for that matter, and adds even more activeness in the form of knowing what gambits are in what spells, what stats are your strong and weak points, etc. Now, to be honest, there are some gambits, auras, stats, etc. that are just kind of better than others, and this can lead to some similarities in runs as you progress and filter through suboptimal upgrades in favor of stronger ones. Especially because compared to the wide variety of different upgrade types, in each upgrade type specifically, there are some that have less variety, such as the stone altars, echoes, and feathers. But honestly, in the fairly limited time I've played, I've had a variety of in-run builds, and while I'm sure there is a meta that I don't know much of, it felt like I was pretty equally powerful in different ways per run in combat even if I didn't have certain upgrades that I knew were very good. Many roguelikes will end up having to deal with this balancing predicament as well, and I'd say compared to many other roguelikes that I've played, Astral Ascent is at least on par in terms of upgrade variety and balancing, especially considering the wide berth of upgrade options the game presents. Mixing this with the very addicting spell cycle playstyle, smooth feel of the fights themselves, and overall gorgeous presentation of the game, you'll find that runs even after hours of gameplay can still suck you in and provide a fun and unique combat experience. Astral Ascent was a game that really surprised me. I honestly didn't expect much going in since I'd never heard of the game before, but boy was I blown away. The game is heat with its gorgeous pixel graphics, immaculate world, explorable lore, fun gameplay, and of course its incredibly fun and unique combats. Huge shout out to Hibernian Workshop for giving me a free copy, and apologies it took me this long to give it a look over. College has been, well, if you know, you know. I really enjoyed this title, especially its combats, and while I won't say the game nor the combat is perfect, I think that delves into the realm of subjectivity, I will say that compared to a lot of my favorite roguelikes, Astral Ascent managed to go above and beyond my expectations with its combats. From its density to its intentionality to its variety and its creativity, notably in its unique spell cycle system. The combat is the perfect seasoning to the spicy spaghetti that is this game, and it's been a blast playing it so far. I definitely plan on spending a lot more time on it if free time ever comes to me, and I highly recommend you guys try it out and see if you enjoy it yourselves. And as a quick insert, I'm not sponsored by Hibernian Workshop. They reached out to me with a free copy of the game, and it looked like something I wanted to give a whirl. So I did, I loved it, one thing led to another, and here we are. So, on that note, if y'all have any interesting games you'd like for me to try out, post a comment or shoot me an email. My email link will be in the description and in my channel About page. You don't have to gift me the game. I just don't have a ton of time to search for more hidden gems like Astral, so a recommendation is all I'm looking for here. I can't guarantee I'll get to every request, but I'm gonna try my best since the couple of roguelikes that have been brought to my attention have been more than worthy for me to check out when I get the time. Anyways, what do you think about Astral Ascent if you've played it or are from the future and got it and came back here? Did Astral Ascent nail roguelike combats? Am I overhyping a merely mediocre attempt at roguelike combats, or underhyping a more than perfect system? What were your overall thoughts on the game? Let me know in the comments, and I've already spent this video actively memorizing your search patterns and now already know exactly when I'll see you in the next one. Just gotta cycle that video eventually. Okay, bye.